Rachel Kingston, Infowars.com, Prison Planet TV. Welcome to the nightly news. And tonight we have an exciting guest. We're going to be joined by Larry Capetto. For the past decade, Larry has been documenting and recording stories from American and Canadian war veterans. Larry has interviewed over 1,000 veterans, inspiring over a dozen powerful film documentaries, known as a series entitled Lest They Be Forgotten. Today I want to focus on one particular film. It is series 10 of the collection, and it is entitled Yom HaShoah, The Holocaust Remembered. Welcome, Larry, and thank you for joining us. Tell me about the making of The Holocaust Remembered.
Wow, that was my 10th film, as you said, and a labor of love like all my work has been. It's a film I've been wanting to do for a long time. I think it's something we run from. I remember I didn't watch Schindler's List until recently because I just was afraid of it. But after working with these survivors and seeing the depth of their stories, and it's a big part of our history, maybe not something we watch every day, I really was on a quest to document what happened. I think everybody should watch it once. That's my thought, just because of what happened. And hopefully history won't repeat itself again.
How did you find all of these survivors?
Whenever I go to a new area, I always contact the local news media, and they put out a press release, in this case in the Washington, D.C. area, where I found 17 Jewish survivors that were in the camps, the labor camps and the concentration camps.
And out of all the survivors you interviewed, who touched your heart the most? What story is the most memorable to you?
I think Marty Weiss comes to mind with this question because of the descriptive accounts he gave of some of the things that happened. Probably the most stunning story I heard, and I'm not going to recount it verbatim, but basically women with their children out by a river, and then the Germans or the SS, or no, actually, hold on, I think these were the Lithuanian army individuals, but the children were taken out of the arms of the mothers and thrown into the river, and they made the mothers watch. Some of the heads of the children were bashed in. I mean, stuff I don't even want to talk about, but that story blew me away, that he told it with tears in his eyes.
So Jill Pauley, one of the survivors that you interviewed, she talked about some of the problems in Germany, and oddly enough, it was actually a very cultured city, highly cosmopolitan, but some of the problems that she mentioned was the downturn in the economy, serious debt, no jobs, depression, inflation, and they were looking for a leader. How do you feel that that contributed to Hitler rising to power?
Good question. Many things come to my mind. The first 30 minutes of this film really deal with Hitler's rise to power. That's a very intriguing thing. How can one man rise to a position of authority to where he'd have all these subordinates or whoever going out into the fields and doing all these things? And I know Hitler didn't act alone. There were a lot of people that were tried later. There were a lot of people that were involved with this. But it's interesting to me studying this and the charisma that this man had back in the 20s into the 30s, and how he appealed to the youth of the day. So you've got this man rising through the ranks, and you're right, the climate, the temperature of the country was perfect for this man to come on the scene, almost like the Antichrist coming on the scene. You know, the economy was down, you know, all these things, and yet it was a very cultured country. I mean, you would look at Germany at that time, you wouldn't think that they would be capable of doing the horrendous things that were carried out by these people. But it's interesting the steps that led up to his rise to power. And it's scary, but it's intriguing, but it's scary, and so that's my answer to that question.
So another lady that was on your film, her name was Louisa Israel, and she poses the question: what would you do if your family was starving and there was no work? What would you do if someone rose up and offered you all the answers? And I think she's definitely speaking upon the German people, how they were just so desperate to escape the climate of the country. And I just wanted to, ask you about what you thought about how people in such a state of desperation can turn to someone in the hopes that he's not going to become a monstrous, psychotic dictator.
I think it's only natural to migrate towards somebody who is saying, you know, they have the answer for the economy, they're going to feed your children, they're going to educate your children, they're going to do all these things that you're lacking at the moment. And as a country, it appeared that that's where Germany was at. And that for Hitler to come up and to start making his, quote, campaign promises, and he was going to do this, that, and the other, why wouldn't you do it? It's a good question. You know, why would you not do it? So I think a lot of people, even in modern times, would do that. If somebody rose up in a country where there's lack, there's need, and somebody's offering to fix it, and whether they're going to or not, it's nice to hear those things. And so I think there's a tendency to migrate towards that type of person or group of people. And I think that's where Germany probably made one of its biggest mistakes is you know, the decisions that were made because of this man and allowing him to rise to the power, and nobody standing up and stopping him. And that's scary because that could happen again. So,
do you think that they ever could have imagined that it was going to get as bad as it did? And yet again, this kind of touches on the normalcy bias a little bit, but could you ever imagine that they would foresee even the camps that were to come?
A question that I asked these survivors was, you know, and being a believer myself, is how could a loving God allow something like this to happen? The best answer I got to that question was from a woman who was in a concentration camp, Nessie Godwin. And she said, Larry, God had nothing to do with the Holocaust. She said it was man doing this to man.
Larry, as a nation and as a world, do you believe that we are in danger of forgetting the Holocaust?
You know, my documentary series is called Lest They Be Forgotten. If we don't remember, we're going to forget.
Do you have any lingering thoughts of Lest They Be Forgotten that you would like to share with us?
You mentioned the history repeating itself. General Eisenhower, when he went into Buchenwald and some of the camps at the end of the war, he had photographers take a lot of pictures, and he was heard saying that he wanted them to take a lot of pictures because the day was going to come when people would deny this happened. And we are living in that day right now. There are countries in this world who are removing this part of history from their textbooks because they don't want their younger generation to know anything about this.
And last but not least, Larry, do you have any closing statements that you would like to share with our viewers?
All the stories were equally as profound and amazing. And I don't have any favorites, although some stories stand out in my mind more than others. But I am just grateful for the ones that did survive, and very sad for the ones that didn't. So,
well, Larry Capetto, thank you again so much for joining us today, and you're certainly leaving me with the lingering thought of those of us who forget our history are doomed to repeat it again. Very strong words there. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in. Rachel Kingston, Infowars.com, and Prison Planet TV.